morning. Welcome to the ZiaWoolz StudioBuzz podcast episode 9. This is where I talk about knitting and spinning and all the beautiful things you can make with yarn and wool. And I'm coming to you from Albuquerque in New Mexico, and I'm so excited because I have a special guest. As I told you before, my mom is visiting right now. She got in a few days after the last podcast, and we're so happy to have her here. And I'm glad she decided to join me on the podcast today. Willkommen, Mama. Ich freue mich.
Hallo, good morning. Seid Oma Gerda aus Germany. Ich bin froh, hier zu sein und mit meiner Tochter und Familie die Zeit zu verbringen und freue mich natürlich, euch begrüßen zu können.
Danke. So thank you. She is excited to be here and spend time with me and with my family, and she's excited to be here on the podcast and to say hi to you all. So thank you. Danke, Mama. So we brought a few things before I let her go and do her own things. So I'm going to start with that because I told you before that Oma is the big sock knitter. So she always brings us socks too. And I have already worn mine and they were in the wash, and the kids both have a pair, but I still have some that I thought I'd show you. And here they are. She's a sock knitting machine. One pair. Two different purples. These. And this was a test run, and I love these so much. I was so sad that these don't fit me. Da bin ich immer noch traurig, dass die mir nicht passen. Die sind so süß. Little shorter in the cuff. And the way she does hers, she uses the same needle size and the same amount of stitches as I do, 64 stitches in the round, but she always does the whole cuff ribbed in a 2x2 rib. And usually longer than these, but I think she didn't have a lot of yarn for these. Für die, bei denen hattest du nicht mehr so viel von der grauen Wolle, ne? Oder? Deshalb hattest du, glaube ich, dann dir das ausgedacht. Oder du wolltest die zum Verschenken mit einer Kürzer oben machen, ne? Für unser Wetter hier, genau, so war das. Yeah, she actually made these a little bit shorter, kind of to work for our climate, and also because Fiona, she thought maybe Fiona was going to grab these, but Fiona grabbed another pair, which I actually also loved very much, but they fit Fiona a lot better. So, thank you, Oma, for all the beautiful socks. Vielen Dank, Oma, für die ganzen schönen Sachen.
Gerne, gerne.
So, Oma, well, she knits a lot while she's here. She's a big help when in the house, and she helps with the household with the dishes and sometimes cooks us German meals, which is really nice. And, but she also has a lot of time to relax, and she sits and knits, and we knit together. So we always need to figure out what is she gonna do, because she really has a lot of knitting time. Ich habe gerade erzählt, dass wir uns immer was einfallen lassen müssen, für dich zu stricken, weil du ja viel Zeit hast hier, obwohl du auch viel hilfst im Haushalt. Und da habe ich jetzt. So, the project of this year, the winter 2017-18, is another sock memory blanket. And she has made one before for us, which is huge and is always on the sofa. And we all can totally tell that they are so much warmer than any fleece blanket. So I said, I think, because Lewis used it the other day, my son, the one that's on the sofa, and I thought, man, he would like one of those also, maybe in a little less bright colors. So, and we have a lot of the blues and grays and greens, still all of German leftovers Hockeyarn. So that's what she started now. Ich habe gesagt, du hast eben noch, wir haben dann überlegt, weil der Louis die große Decke neulich auch so schön fand oder sehr warm fand, als es ihm kalt war. Und da haben wir dann überlegt, dass du jetzt so eine Decke auch anfängst. Für ihn eben in anderen Farben. Und die nur wahrscheinlich nicht so groß in so einer Standard-Sofa-Größe. She's probably going to make this one in kind of like a throw sofa size where you, not really as a, bed covering size. So this is flying off her needles, as everything does. Du strickst so schnell, habe ich gerade gesagt, wie du ja alles sehr schnell strickst. Du bist eine schnelle Strickerin. Zeigst du noch mal gerade? Let's put it up. So this is already where she is. And it is done with on 3mm needles. And for each square she casts on 49 stitches. And that's exactly what I do on mine, which I haven't picked up in a long time, but I will show you eventually when I get back to it. But it's kind of interesting because her squares are a little bit bigger than mine, so she could not work on my blanket because our gauge is really different. Ich habe gerade erzählt, dass deine Vierecke wirklich ein ganzes Stück größer sind und du jetzt nicht an meiner Decke weiter stricken könntest. Ne? Yeah. So this is going to be beautiful. Wow. Yeah. We haven't decided yet on how big it's going to be. So, good. That was that. So, another reason for why we have a lot of why we had a lot of knitting time. Ich erzähle gerade noch von unserer Reise, wo wir unterwegs waren und viel Strickzeit hatten. Another reason is that we were on a trip for Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a great holiday. We usually travel, and we went to Colorado, to Durango for a few days with the whole family, with my two kids, and we brought Oma along, and everybody had a great time. And there was a lot of knitting in the car. We got there. It's about a 3.5-hour drive, I would say, and then when we were there, we usually do a lot of sightseeing. Also, whatever was still open. I mean, it was kind of like winter season, but still. We always find stuff that we can do. We're not into hiking, but we spent a lot of time outside and went to museums and looked at beautiful things like mining. There's an ore processing plant, which is super cool, and we drove up into a valley towards Ouray, kind of north of Silverton, which is this cool old mining town where you feel like you're transported back into the old days. That was fun. But we were usually back in our condo like when it got dark, or like the latest at 6. So that was a long evening where we also sat and could knit. And it was kind of interesting because our condo, even though it was quite big, you could have even had more people there, but there were no games, no puzzles. So even more knitting. We couldn't play any games. We didn't expect that. Ich habe gerade erzählt, dass wir keine Spiele spielen konnten. Deshalb haben wir ja noch mehr dann abends gestrickt, ne? Weil, ja, sonst hätten wir wahrscheinlich alle zusammen gespielt. Aber es ging nicht, ne? Wussten wir ja nicht. So, I will let Oma go, and so thank you again for coming. Danke, dass du da warst.
Bye.
Und ich lasse dich gehen.
Habt alle eine schöne Zeit. Vielleicht noch einmal später. Bye bye.
So, Oma, I'm excited I made her come on the podcast. That is so nice. It's always a little awkward on camera, film camera for the first time, but well, I think she did great. She's so cute. I love her. so much. Always glad that she comes and spends time with us. So, where were we? Okay, a lot of knitting time. That's what I meant to tell you about. So I have several finished objects that I wanted to show you. And one of them, and that's the one that I got done like the longest ago and very shortly after the last podcast, is the Dadeland pullover. I had told you about this several times. This is the back. I made this in a custom dyed colorway for my daughter Fiona, and out of my Mesa base, which is a blend of alpaca, merino, and silk. Very soft, very cozy, and the colorway is called Nightfall. She loves it, and I have the same in green, the same sweater out of the same yarn, but like I said, bright green. And we wanted to have a photo session where we both wear our sweaters, and we will at some point, but we haven't managed to do that yet. But she loves it, and I'm glad that she loves it, so all good. So that was one thing. This I actually finished before we went on the trip. Sorry, fuzz. On the trip, the first thing I finished were my hand-spun socks. And it's kind of funny because I did not tell you last time at the podcast that I had lost that project. It was the craziest thing ever. I couldn't find it. I had it in a project bag and I couldn't find that project bag. I mean, you don't think you lose something, really? I mean, how do you lose a knitting project in a project bag? So I looked everywhere where I could think of. And then I thought, oh, I remember what I did with it. Looked there, it wasn't there. That happened several times. And then it turned out that I had left it for whatever reason in a big bag that I had brought to my yarn store when I went there to hang out with someone, and I had planned to knit there and brought a few things, and I had taken everything else out of my bag except for those. So I was glad when I found them, took them on the trip, finished them. I wore them. Sorry, I couldn't wait. I know a lot of people wait before they wear them. I didn't. Sorry. So here they are. I did wash them. So, excuse me for just a moment. My yarn is done. So back to the socks, the hand-spun socks. I made these exactly the way I make all of my socks. Or most of my socks. 2.5 millimeter needles, 64 stitches. I do a short ribbing up here and 2x2. Then my leg area is not too long. I think I had about 30 rows. This was 13 rows. And what else do you need to know? A heel flap and a gusset. And for the toe, what I do is I do 4 decreases, then I do this every other row 5 times, and after that I decrease every round until I have only 4 stitches on my needle and I pull my yarn through. I don't kitchener these. And that's a fit that works very well for my foot. I mentioned this before, I talked about this before. I spun the yarn slightly different for both socks because I had spun part of this spinning top, which is a 90-10 merino nylon blend. And then I watched a podcast by Elfenwolle. She's a German dyer and who spins a lot and wears a lot of hand-spun socks. And she talked about how she plies the yarn tighter for socks. I'm not sure if she also gives her singles more twist. She usually only talks about the plying, but I bet she does everything, just more twist. So since I had not spun everything right away, I decided to spin the second half of my braid a little bit tighter. So this was something that I had dyed. And the second half of the braid, I did not get as much yardage because due to the tighter twist, I lost in length. But here's the very funny part. So this is my sock number 1, which I have marked so I can always distinguish it with just one cross because I'll know that's the softer one. The second one has 2 little blue X's here. But if you look closely, you will be able to see that this one is wider. At the same time, when I counted my rows and I was ready by row count to start the tip of the second sock, the toe section, I didn't have the length. So while I lost length gauge-wise with the tighter applied 2-ply yarn, it ended up giving me a wider gauge in terms of the stitch count, even though I did all of that the same. So I added actually 5 rows in length for this. I'm just ignoring the difference in width, and I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I thought that was super interesting. How does that even work? How's that even possible? You would think you have less volume in your yarn, so it would also give you a narrower foot, if that changes at all. Very strange. Yeah, so what else did I want to mention? Oh yes, in case the leg, I started off using some of that softer, I call it softer yarn because it was less plied and is thus softer. So I used that just in case I would run out of yarn, but I do have a little bit left. And I was a little sad because I kept knitting and knitting, and I was thinking, oh, I hope I'm gonna get to this little rusty bit and have that in my sock, but I don't. So now I probably have to start a hand-spun memory blanket. But first I need to finish something else. I'm kind of like holding it in. Another thing that I did want to mention is when I put these on, I feel that the second sock that the yarn is just a little harder somehow. It has that pearly thing, and I can, like the ridge here where I did my toe decreases, I totally can feel that so much more. And also in the sock, you feel the bumps, the pearl bumps a lot more. I thought at first it would bother me because when I put on the socks, I felt it so much, I felt the difference so much, but once I wore them, it was fine. And I've worn them for a few days. because now I'm really, really curious how they wear. So far, after 3 days, I think that's how long I wore them, I could not tell anything. No, not even any pilling here on the heel or something. And that was, I mean, as you can imagine, we were on the vacation. I finished them there. And so I wore them in shoes all the time, most of the day. So far, very happy. And I will wear the right one, always wear the first sock on my right foot and the second sock on my left foot, just in case I kind of form my toe. So I thought that's what I'm gonna do. So that was the first finished object, the hand-spun socks. So curious about how they will wear, so I will keep you posted. I kept them in my cabin bag. One of my naughty or nice bags. Made this for myself because, I mean, I knew it was going to be for myself, and it still has my old label on there. I used to be Sheep on a Spring. And I used on the back here some vintage fabric, which is very dear to me. It was a leftover that I had gotten from my great aunt Katie, who was we were very close, and it's so nice because she lived for many years in Ohio, in Cincinnati, and then she came back to Germany, went back for a few years, and then when she was older, I want to say maybe past 60 or so, she spent the rest of her life in Germany. But she was just a very talented woman who sewed almost all of her own clothing, and she made a lot of clothing for us kids, to my brother and myself, and also for my mom when she was younger, and such fun memories of her. Yeah, so it's a special bag with this fabric from her on the back. Another pair of socks that I brought in my little zombie bag. Were these. Sock number 1 and sock number 2. I had initially planned to change things up and also use a different color for the toe, but ended up, I had so much yarn left over that I thought, whatever. It's not, I mean, nobody sees that. That's all that I have left, even though I had already taken some for my blanket, as far as I remember. And this is kind of funny. I talked about that in one of the very first episodes, that I am kind of bummed about my, it's kind of almost embarrassing for somebody who works with colors all the time, that I used a yarn for the ribbing that is so close to the sock itself that it was literally nonsensical to use this. I don't even know what I was thinking. I probably wasn't thinking at all, and I thought, oh, this matches, okay, let's do this, but it matches way, way, way too much. So I would definitely use either a solid color, solid purple, solid green, anything, just not this. But whatever, it is what it is. And I will tell you more about the yarn in a second. We'll put this aside, and the yarn was from the Cyborgs craft room in the colorway They're Coming to Get You, Barbara, and that's why I chose the zombie bag. I think this is, can somebody tell me what this is a reference to? Because I think there's more dyers who have used, who have colorways that are named that. Is that right? Or am I making that up? The mini for the cuffs, that was Leading Man Fiber Arts in the colorway Complete Imagination, which was a mini that I received in a swap from Amber, the yarn hoarder. I don't think she watches this, but if you do, thank you, Amber, for swapping with me. So, second pair of socks done, very happy, and I swore to myself that I will not start another pair of socks because I still have probably 2 pairs started that I want to finish first. Maybe 3. 3 it is. Okay, the other project of the trip I brought for was my modified Dadeland sweater, Dadeland pullover. It is the one that I make with hand-spun yarn from the fiber from Yampa Valley Fibers. And I lost so bad at Yarn Chicken. Ooh, this is horrible. I was kind of hoping I was going to have enough yarn, but not even close, my friends, not even close. So this was a fun experiment for me. And again, I have talked about this in a previous episode because I was inspired to modify the neck to a V-neck. And I went completely wrong because I thought I would have to add stitches to compensate for the lower V-neck, but I did not. The only thing that you have to compensate for when you cast on your stitches, you cast on, you kind of set yourself up for the raglan, and then if you work your neckline with short rows, the only thing you have to compensate for when you cast on is if you work short rows in the section of the arm, because where you go back and forth on that arm at the back and you work your first raglan increases, that's where you are missing those raglan increases in the front. So I don't even know what I was thinking. I mean, I clearly wasn't thinking right, because I mean, once I worked it over in my mind, I know exactly that this is what you have to do. So it was all fine with the original stitch count that Isabel Kramer gave for the sweater. But what I changed was, instead of working the neckline with short rows the way she suggests, I added only 1 stitch per side for the longest time. And let me just show you how this looks like. I really, really like it. Towards the end, you may see that I did not make it a very pointy V-neck, and I may not even do, when I do the neck ribbing, when I pick up for those stitches and start working on that, you know how usually you have that 1 stitch sitting on top that is that is very, you know, defining for your V-neck. I don't even think I'm going to do that because in the end I had 4 stitches where when I started working in the round again and quit doing the short row shaping because I just wanted it a little more rounded. But it's a very nice shape, and now the fit is good. It's probably a little bit different than before because my gauge was off, but I knew I was so similar that I didn't even measure, and I worked with 5mm needles. As I also had talked about before, when I first started the sweater, I used 4.5mm, but then I thought, let's give it a try. And the 5mm, actually, I like the fabric better. It's not airy and you know, with holes to see through, but it gives the yarn a little bit of room to breathe, and it makes for a lighter fabric, I think. So I am missing the 2 sleeves, and on the bottom, and I had posted a picture where I wear this on the podcast, not on the podcast, sorry, and on Instagram. I took a few pictures, and let me show you how much yarn I have left, because I just wanted to see how long it is on me, and this is all I have left. Just 1 full skein and this little bit, which was a mini skein. And now I was thinking about what am I going to do. As you can see, the yarn is very particular. It's not really a yarn where you feel like, oh, let's throw in a blue stripe. I mean, at least that's just me. I would always think, man, I ran out of yarn. That's why I had to do this. So it is too short to end in the length with just the smaller ball of yarn. But so my thought was to make it longer on the bottom to give it the length that I would need to comfortably wear it and to get warmth on my body also on the back. But then just make it a half sleeve sweater that I can always wear with a long sleeve shirt under it. Well, I would of course prefer to have long sleeves, because I know one time I did that. I just thought, oh, I usually put my sleeves up anyway, so I'm gonna be fine with a half sleeve. But I ended up not liking it so much, and I really, at least I would have loved to have the choice to be able to, you know, pull them down too when I'm really cold. So what I ended up doing is I got in touch with the place that the fiber comes from, and I have messaged back and forth with the lady. We emailed, and I sent her pictures, and it's, I mean, as you can imagine, with pictures it's kind of hard to figure out what it is exactly, also because I bought the fiber in 2016. So it turned out the fiber is called Monster something. Now I have forgotten what it's called. See? But what it means essentially is that they take leftovers from their drum cards and throw in some random bits that they think would work, and then they have a one-of-a-kind blend of roving. One of a kind. You know what I said? So she got ideas of what probably was in there. I think it's called Moon Monster, actually. Now I remember. Moon Monster, cute name. So I thought, man, she has to really see this, what this is. And so I took some bits where I thought that represent the colorway well, and sent them in the mail to her. I'm thinking that I did that a few days ago, I think Monday, and I'm thinking maybe she's going to get it today. So hopefully I'm going to hear from her soon. And she said that even if she does not have exactly what this is, she may be able to come up with something that would work. And I'm thinking that could be nice, right? Like a tonal variation of a similar yarn. And she's also going to be able to tell me the fiber content, because I had just nothing in my bag. I couldn't find anything. I'm surprised, but I probably got so excited about getting fiber and that I forgot to write it down. So probably a lot of high alpaca content, which also makes sense because I had a pound of fiber, and to run out before, I mean, so early makes me think it's alpaca. So stay tuned to find out more about this next time. The other project I brought that I am working on right now is the one that we have a knit along going on in the ZiaWoolz group on Ravelry for. It is another Isabel Kramer pattern, and it's called the Girl's Best Friend. It's a shawl. And I purchased my yarn in Taos at the Wool Festival from MJ Yarns, and I am still very much in love with this. It is not as far as I am hoping, because this pattern section here takes up a lot of time. But that's okay. Sometimes you just need to pace yourself. This is how much yarn I have left from the green, and it's the last bit of the green that will go into this stripe. And I have only 4 more rows, but there's one of the rows in there that where you increase for these little bubble things, and that takes a long time. That's why I'm not quite there yet. Can't wait to get to another color then on this. It's so funny how this is almost the same color. This is one of mine. I meant to tell you that, what I'm wearing. This is my Farmstead cardigan. It is made with ZiaWoolz Duke. I finished it this summer, and it's a worsted weight yarn, 100% superwash merino. And I wanted something in a green like this, so I did a few trials and came up with this colorway, which is called, I wish I'd remember. That's what the colorway name should be, wouldn't that be funny? I will look it up. Oopsie, I should know this. So here's the cardigan in case you want to see it. It is, there's a little bit of a waist. It has a bit of a waist shaping. I hope you could see that. And no buttons. Excuse me. Sorry, there is definitely a time limit to how long you can wear a worsted weight long sleeve cardigan in a house with the heat on, even when it's cold outside. Because we had some super nice and very mild days in the past, also while we were gone on our trip to Durango, but just yesterday it started cooling down quite a bit, and so in the mornings you need something to throw on, but good now. So I told you everything about the shawl. I will tell you more as I progress. I have not mentioned the needles, actually. I'm using ZiaWoolz with the red lace ones. I think that's what they're called. They are nice and pointy, and I love using these. The size is what she suggests in the pattern, and that's a 3.5 millimeter needle. And right now I am using a little basket because I have it kind of ready to go all over the house. I like these little baskets that are very rustic. You can almost still see how these used to be branches, thin branches, and but of course you wouldn't want to snag your knitting. So I had this idea of making a lining for it, and it was actually nothing. I didn't do it very scientific. I just did this really fast eyeball measuring and made a little lining. You can see I didn't do a very good job of some parts of it, but nobody cares, right? It's just for me. Very cute. And what's next? I get a project bag caught my eye the other day, and I thought, I'm really not sure that I showed this when I got this, because I had ordered it from my friend Erica, and I certainly would want everybody to see how cute the bags are that she makes. So even if I showed you 2 episodes ago when I had ordered it, I show it again. I can't remember. I got a Halloween bag. Isn't it cute? With handles to drag around. And it has this drawstring closure, which works so well with my Halloween socks that I put in here. I showed you these a while ago. I started them in Taos with all my friends that came on the trip to the Taos Wool Fest. And I knew I'd run out of steam once Halloween was over, but that's okay. I just have the bag hanging in my studio on a hook, and I love seeing it because it's so pretty. Very cute. She had a sale for these. I can never have enough project bags. I love them all. I didn't show you the one that my hand-spun Dadeland pullover lives in. I'm using this big thing. It's one of the ones that I made. I still had it out. It had Fiona's sweater in it, this one, and then I just put mine in there. So what else do I need to show you? This is all the stuff that I have worked on, but I have some fun things that I need to tell you about, and they all make me so happy. Let's talk first about the knitting plans. So I'm making a sweater for myself. I made the sweater for Fiona. And I feel like, so my husband would not wear a knitted sweater. I don't think he would. He's a kind of t-shirt, fleece jacket kind of guy. So I kind of checked him off my mentally checked him off my list, and but I think my son would wear a sweater. So I'm having a whole bunch of crazy ideas, and I am not sure if I will be successful at it, but you will be my witness, and with all my trials that will happen in the future. I have a superwash yarn that I am thinking about using. It's a DK weight, and I'm not sure if I will buy some yarn. I'm thinking about getting it at my yarn store. I'm going to look around and see if I find something that works with it, because it's a bright, kind of a mix in between a teal and a turquoise. I'm sorry I didn't bring it over here. I will show you another time when my plans are a little more solid. But the pattern that I want to use is only a stitch pattern, and I want ideally to do it to work his sweater as a top-down raglan, similar to the Dadeland pullover. But I have this, because it's two-colored, it's so mind-boggling to figure out the pattern with the short row shaping of the neckline. So I know at some point when I have the second color, I will need a lot of focus time to do nothing but that sweater and to really sit down and figure it all out. I know the stitch count is not going to be too bad, but my goodness. Without further ado, let me show you the pattern. And this is from a German book that I just did a copy, so I don't need to drag the book around. And as you can see, it's not charted. I don't even know if you could do a chart for a two-colored. Could you? I think probably. So I did this for myself, but I'm not quite sure, because this is it for working the pattern in the round. But what's the truly crazy part is when you actually have to reverse everything, because you're knitting it back and forth for the short rows. But so what gave me the idea is that when I was about 20, my brother had this black and white vintage heavy wool sweater that I loved. And that sweater had a very interesting stitch pattern that I could never quite figure out from looking at it, but I loved it, and sadly it's gone. So at some point, I don't know, I don't think he remembers I asked him. I think maybe he let a friend borrow it and never got it back, or he lost it at a party, or who knows, so long ago. But this pattern truly reminds me a little bit of this sweater. And I have knitted a small sample in just some random sock yarn, even though I would kill myself probably before I knit this out of sock yarn. Seriously. Here's my little sample. Isn't this cool? I love how this looks like. So again, I have this teal color already. I'm thinking either kind of like a not too bright green, but preferable a gray. And so I will check at my yarn store, and if they don't have it, I'll just dye it up. That would not be a big deal, but since the first yarn that I already have is a commercial yarn, I thought, oh, whatever. I always like to shop there and support them. So that was 4 crazy ideas. And I wanted to show you this. This is a basket that I found a long time ago in a thrift store, and I started keeping it on the table in the living room because there's always a lot of knitting stuff lying around, and pens and maybe little needles. So here I keep these, my little index cards and the copy of the pattern, and I have little scissors in there and my pens and my yarn sample. It's cute, right? I don't really carry it like this, but I think it's cute, very cute. Not sure where it came from. It looks like really one of those authentic handmade baskets, don't you think? So I have a lot of new things that I wanted to show you, and I hope they're all gonna make you either laugh or be happy with me and for me, and yeah. So let's start. I got some more spinning fiber, which does remind me, you may wonder, how is her yarn doing for the fog cutter sweater? I'm trying to pull this over, but it's too low. I have just filled 1 bobbin in that pale watery blue, and that is 4 ounces that I have spun. I just finished this last night. You may also remember that I had a beautiful bat from my friend Sherry, which also will still wait a little bit because I want to get done with this so it doesn't, you know how sometimes you just have to stick with a project because you want your yarn to turn out all the same, and I think it might mess me up a little bit if I'd spin something else in between, even though I'm still so much looking forward to spinning that. And I do have more fiber that I'm also looking forward to spinning, and that is some fluff that I just got because I bumped into someone at the yarn store, and she was showing a bunch of people a bunch of stash enhancement, and she's like, I don't even really spin yet, but I have this beautiful fiber. I'm thinking maybe I'm gonna de-stash it. I said, I take it, and that I did. So it is Frabjous Fibers Lucky Bob. Ooh, it's a 60% superwash merino, 30 bamboo, 10% nylon. Such pretty colors. Look at this. Love. Hints of purple, orange, and red. So a word about spinning something like this. I'll see how it goes when I really get to it. Oh, it has a colorway name, Moulin Rouge, number 10. So I'm thinking that I will try to spin this from the fold, and once I get to it, I will maybe make a little video for you so you can see how this goes. But the reason why I'm thinking I'll do that is that the bamboo fibers can be quite long and kind of difficult to handle because they're so long, so it's hard to draft. And so spinning from the fold is really something that's really very helpful and makes it so much easier. So, but more once I get to it. So that is this, and yarn. Look, I got the yarn for Fiona's Christmas cardigan, that I had talked about previously. So don't tell her. This is for my daughter. So I had this yarn. Again, Ancient Stash, 70% cotton and 30 polyamide. And it has a yardage of, I do know. 50 grams, 110 meters, and I have, I think 8, yes, no 7 balls of this. And I will make the same blue cardigan that I had finished for myself recently, which I named the copycat cardigan because I copied a store-bought fit and design. And I had my mom get me more of the Lala Berlin. And I will hold this together with that yarn that I just showed you. The Lala Berlin by Lana Grossa, or Harry Lala Berlin. I'm not quite sure if there's another Lala. But this is a blend of polyamide, polyacrylic, 14% virgin wool, and 37 alpaca. I am thinking that the alpaca is what makes it very fuzzy, and I have worn my blue cardigan quite a bit in the mornings here as I anticipated. It's really super cozy and snuggly, and even though it doesn't need to have buttons in the front. But this one, I have enough yarn to give it a little more length. I'm thinking that would be nice. I could have, I'm kind of like, I should have done that with mine, but no, I'm not going to do it because it's worked in pieces. You knit, I started with the back, then I did my 2 fronts, and that's what I'm going to do here as well. Then you join on the shoulders, you put that together. And before you close the side seams, you work your sleeves, you pick up the stitches here and knit those out. Once I get started with this, look at the monster needles that this will go on. I'm thinking this is probably going to be a very fast knit. 10 millimeter needles. Is that, oh yeah, it says the American size is 15. So quick. It's going to be fun. Soon. Sorry about the crinkling. So another fun thing that I am so excited about, you know how I talked about the Halloween fabric that I had used for project bags, and I had used it all up and only kept a small size bag for myself out of this cool fabric. And everything else was gone, sold. And so I thought, well, let's just Google it. And I think I searched for witch undies, and I found more fabric on Etsy. I have not used it yet, but guess what? I even found it in orange. Yay. I'm telling you, if I make a bag before Halloween comes around again, I'm gonna use it. I don't care if it's not Halloween or Easter or summer or whatever. These are so cute. So, stash, fabric stash, fiber stash, yarn stash. One more adorable thing that I found in a thrift store, and that I had to save because it was handmade and it was so cute, and even though I don't have a little girl anymore, this thing had to come home with me. Are you ready? Isn't she the cutest? Look at that face. How could someone throw her in the Goodwill bag? It must have been an accident, don't you think? Oh, I like her so much. And those little braids. She's already had a wash, and she didn't mind. That's my little girl. She doesn't have a name yet. I don't know if she ever will have a name, but she had to be saved. And then I have brought over to show you a project that I have not worked on in a while, but I will, for a certain reason, be picking up very soon to work on. And that's my corner to corner blanket. It lives in my ginormous and beautiful fat squirrel bag. I love the face of these two people. Oh, he's the milkman. I always only look at the shawl that the lady is knitting for him, but he carries milk. Look at him. Love the bag. I needed a big bag for this because, well, as the word says, it's a blanket, and it is fairly big already. I just haven't worked on it in quite some time. I would say since spring, but it's big already. Oh my goodness. So I had already made a corner here to turn and make it a sofa size throw, but then I didn't like it and I ripped back a little bit and made it a little bit. I'm making it wider, and probably I'll be ready to turn this corner soon. I call this my happy blanket because I decided to use only indie dyed yarns in all the colors that make me happy. And even though there are some in there that are not, you know, not necessarily bright, like this gray here, or this dark brownish black. If you add one of these colors, it just makes the other ones pop even more. So stay tuned for more of this while I write down all the colors and all the yarns that go into my sock memory blanket with the squares. On this one, I decided to go completely random because I don't even know how I could keep track of all the colors and all the yarns. It's just would be too much work. Not impossible, but a lot of work. So I throw in to the bag just whatever I have that I think of using, and I still have a lot of minis in a different place in my studio. But oh, there are some like custom minis. I almost want to say that Debbie dyed this. Debbie of the Periscoping Sisters. Did you, Debbie? Wasn't that the one that you didn't like at first and then we loved it so much? So let me put this aside and then I show you why I think I will pick this up very soon. Well, for one, it's getting cold, so it's kind of like a good time of the year to work on a blanket, because if it's not cold, this thing will kill you probably. Too warm. But lucky me, my birthday was a long time ago, but I received a present that made me so, so happy. It's from a dear friend of mine who lives here in Albuquerque, so I won't say her name. I don't know if she would like that, but she knows who she is, and she has gifted me for my birthday something that I only received just recently because it was not ready, because it is a yarn advent calendar. How amazingly awesome of a present is this? Oh, I am so excited. So I am the one who always makes calendars for her kids. And the idea of, I would never think of buying myself one. I don't know. It's kind of like, I feel like that's too much spending, but to get it as a gift was just the most beautiful and touching thing. So thank you, my friend. I can't wait to unpack these cute little gifts. And I do know the artist that it's from, and you will see more of this soon. So this is from an Etsy shop called Bea and Rose. I didn't know them before. Apparently they have more club options. I mean, this is not a club. This is the advent calendar, but she seems to do clubs too. I haven't looked her up yet even though that was my gift, and it was kind of, I got the printout with the advent calendar and the name of the shop and whatnot, and then it took a while until I got my present just recently, which, oh, so happy. Okay, so you will see more of what's in those bags shortly, and I'm so glad that I could be with you again and share all the things that I have been working on in the last 2 weeks. I hope you all are well and also working on some nice things. And if you care to do so, I would love to see you in the ZiaWoolz group on Ravelry. Please join, please say hi, leave a comment if you have a minute. And if you liked the shawl, the girl's best friend, please join our knit along. I will come up with a nice price. And do look, there's one person who already finished her shawl. You're amazing. Wow, that's so beautiful. It turned out so, so nice with the turquoise in there, the very southwestern colors kind of. So enjoy the start of the Advent season, and I hope you all are well, and see you again in about 2 weeks. Bye.